All right. Hello, good evening, Dr. Thompson. How are you?
I'm good.
That's good. I'm Chineye Bakwe. I am a second year medical student at University of Wisconsin, and I will be moderating this session today. So we have two other panelists who are going to join us. Okay.
Okay, awesome. Hello.
All right, we're just going to go ahead and get started. And as you already know, so we're talking today about failing, making your setback a comeback. So some of the questions that I have for you and the others who will be joining us are in line with that. And anyone who is streaming can feel free to send in any questions that you would like to ask as well. Okay, so can you introduce yourself? Just tell us a bit about um, if you're in training, what level of training you're in, and a bit about what you do.
Okay, so hi everyone. I am Chantel Thompson. I am a current PGY1 at UPMC University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, Harrisburg, in obstetrics and gynecology. I graduated from the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine and am originally from Philadelphia.
Very nice. How is residency going for you so far?
It's going as well as any residency can be as an intern. But I honestly love it. I'm happy to be doing what I wanted to do, which is obstetrics and gynecology. I love my patients. I love my co-residents. I like my program. I'm happy where I am.
That's good. That's good. All right, I'll get started with the first question that I have here, and it's how. So, how have you stayed? You're a first year resident now. How have you stayed motivated and been able to persist through all of the assessments? So, getting medical school, I guess, getting into medical school, all the ones in med school, the board exams, and then now being in residency. How have you managed to stay motivated throughout those assessments?
So I think the first part of me being motivated was having a good why. And I did not go to medical school straight from college. I actually worked um, in customer service and I worked in research beforehand. And it really took me doing other jobs that weren't necessarily my dream to really understand how much happier I would be doing medicine. So it was that. And then also just a challenge upon myself to see like, if I was to put my all into everything, would I be able to accomplish what I wanted to? Um, I was, I'm first generation college student, also first generation doctor. So it really was a big motivation for me to try to really challenge myself and uh, and kind of make a challenge against the my previous generations who had never been able to do that. And that's really been a big motivation for me myself. Um, Studying for my MCAT I did it with a lot of help. I did have a lot of coworkers and friends and family members who really put their love and support into me. I had a great boss at the lab that I was working in at the time who was able to procure some pre-med MCAT books that she just kind of gave to me to help me study. I even had a doctor who I was shadowing who was nice enough to kind of donate a question Q bank set to me. So it really it took a lot, kind of a village of different people who helped. And like when you have that many people that are behind you who aren't necessarily depending on you to win, but are in your corner to want you to win, it really helps to create that motivation. And that just carries through to medical school and the assessments that you have there with boards. And then even as a resident, you continue to take boards, you continue to have assessments. I'm happy to have taken and passed my level 3, which is the last of all of my complexes that I have to do. So now I'm happy. I can now just focus on um, the assessments related to my specialty. And those assessments never leave. Once you graduate, you take in-service exams, and then you have your actual boards for your specialty, and then you have all of the different assessments that you may need to do to keep up your licensing. So really having that mindset that these assessments aren't necessarily meant to shut you out, but are meant to challenge you, and you can be able to just push your way through it.
That's awesome. Thank you and congratulations on getting done with that.
Ooh, I'm so happy. I'm just happy to not. I mean, I'm sure everyone will love whatever specialty that they love. I just love obstetrics and gynecology, and I'm really happy to be able to just focus on that for a long time. So thank you.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Um, okay, and so just thinking back to what you were just sharing, um, how so with assessment, and I really liked how you said that those assessments are not meant to like push people out, but to help them be prepared. How have you how have you just felt about assessments? And because medical training is such an assessment heavy process, how have you felt about the ability of those assessments to really test how much someone knows, how prepared they are, or even like should someone be a doctor? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think that assessments are necessary, and I it becomes difficult because it does set people who are better test takers apart from people who aren't great test takers. And I think that that's where that question of whether or not assessments are necessary for you to be able to go into medical school um, sits. Um, I really love the changes that's happened, for example, with USMLE. Step one, which is now pass fail. I think that an assessment like that is definitely wonderful. To make sure that you at least have the basic knowledge and a strong enough baseline to be able to move forward to show that you can be a competent doctor, and you are able to take, and you have shown that you have a standard base of knowledge for you to practice, hopefully practice as a physician in the future, but at least make it to your clinical years. I think that that's necessary. Unfortunately, assessments have been utilized by higher education institutions to sort people out, to choose people, and to sometimes use that um, as a mechanism to keep people from being able to go into their institution. And it's unfair. Like I said, I did was first generation, and I didn't really have, unfortunately, I didn't have like a lot of funds to be able to study for all of my tests. It really took a lot of maneuvering, even just to get into medical school. I was working 3 jobs at that time, and the extra job was just to pay for all of the Q banks, and applying to medical school, and traveling, because at the time when I went to school, we were still doing in-person interviews. So it is a challenge, and it's unfortunate because some people don't necessarily have to worry about losing hours of sleep to because they have to go to work, when you have someone who's able, or you may have like other mechanisms to be able to support you getting that access to those resources. So it's frustrating, but I think that I do still think that testing is necessary. During my step one, I really had a hard time just trying to um, study, be consistent with my studying. And I recognized that I didn't have great test taking skills. And so one of the things that I invested in was to get a tutor that was specifically for step one, who gave me many, skills that I was able to use moving forward for all of my other test taking, and to kind of keep the test taking anxiety down, for me to be able to focus on what the question is, to create a standard way of answering these questions that help with my ability to take tests. And no, I didn't have the strongest scores. I wasn't blowing everyone else out of the water, but I was blessed enough to only have had to take um, all of these exams once and pass them. And I know that there are people who weren't able to do that. And I mean, it's a privilege that I was able to do, but it doesn't always say that, everything is going to be great. I didn't, when I applied to residency, I didn't match the first time around. So I had to go through that process again. And so that was a huge setback. And I know part of it did have to do with my board scores. But just like when it comes to taking a test or having to deal with like failing an exam or failing a class or not getting a good evaluation, um, it takes that motivation and um, that endurance to continue to push through even when you have something that can be devastating to you. So I know I went a little bit off kilter from the question, but I think it all kind of comes back around to um, focusing on how to get through all of those assessments, because this uh, this job is going to have a lot of challenges. It's going to throw us for loops that many of us aren't prepared for. So really, just keeping your head together about it and being prepared is what's going to help you to get through, in my opinion.
Definitely, thank you. And so you mentioned like using a tutor, and so I wanted to ask what kind of resources. So again, think medical school and now even residency. What kind of resources have you like used to be successful to make sure that you're able to pass exams or just get through all the different hurdles that exist? Because I think that sometimes there can be almost shame associated with needing that additional help for anything within medical training. So, what kind of resources have you used in the past, and how have you kind of approached that?
I think the first thing for me for choosing resources was understanding what my learning style was, and what my learning styles are, and what can work best, and then what my backups are. So I tend to be more of a person who learns by doing, by asking questions, by sometimes getting questions wrong, and then kind of learning from my mistakes. I'm more hands on. I'm more practical. So having things like cases where I can work through that problem and figure out what the answers are, helps me more. Things like flashcards, where I'm getting these kind of quick questions and I have to have an answer to them, that really was helpful. And also just visual learning is a good backup for me. I pretty much utilized that all through medical school. So all of those visual based learning, spaced repetition. So Anki cards were like my go to. Things like Sketchy, Pathoma, things like Picmonic, that those were kind of my key. And then, of course, just doing questions. Your Q banks are like the baseline. If you are someone who has trouble with test taking, you can't shy away from Q banks. You have to kind of hammer into them until those questions aren't as stressful to you, until you're able to get through a set of questions and be like, oh, that was terrible, I hate doing questions, but at least I got it done. And at least I know that I can like sit for 8 hours straight doing these questions. And um I might feel like I need to sleep for 12 hours, but I'm able to get through them. um and then the difference is that in residency, one thing I found is that the difference between medical school and residency is that the amount of resources that are available to you, or the amount of diversity in resources that are available to you, is much less. um so you I can use, for example, for obstetrics and gynecology, it's all pretty much textbooks, case uh, practice bulletins, and things of that nature. If you're someone who prefers repetition in questions, there are question sets that exist, or question banks that exist, that you can use. But trying to find something that's like a visual based learning mechanism, it's hard to come by. But what I found are like lectures. I found pre-recorded lectures that are on the subjects, that are on the practice bulletins, that are on the chapters of the textbooks that I have. And now I just watch those lectures that have been presented at other institutions, or at my institution in the past. And for me, that's kind of similar to visualized learning. It's in its own little way. And I'm able to participate in that type of way. So, really understanding what your style is and then trying to find the resources that are available to you is helpful. If you're not sure about the variety of resources that are available, I am a Reddit person. I go to Reddit for everything if I'm not sure, and there's usually an answer there. So, check out Reddit, see what's on there, see what exists. You can take what people say about each resource as a grain of salt, like whether they how they rate it, and just see about it for yourself. And also remember that almost every resource that's out there is available for free. So before you pay for it, check and see if you can find it for free. And that includes like PDFs of textbooks and in pretty much anything.
Thank you. So, to the student who might have failed an exam, like you were talking about earlier, to the student who might have failed an exam or an in house exam or a board exam or received a bad evaluation on a rotation or something like that, what would you say to them? How should they, how would you advise that somebody like thinks about that and moves forward?
I would say first, stay humble, but also give yourself grace. So I say that to say, like, understand that the stay humble is to understand that um, we all have faults. There may have been something that could have been corrected in the actions that led up to that, that can be addressed for next time. And actually, that's a good thing. If there were actions that there was nothing that you could have done, it was completely outside of your control. For some people like me, that makes me feel much more uneasy because I feel like, well, if I couldn't do it that time and it was outside of my control, what's the point of trying again? But if you can look back, stay humble, and look at what those faults were, identify them, and then correct them, then all you have to do is try for it again, and give yourself grace. um, in medicine, we are all hard on ourselves, and because we're a bit type A, and it's the reason why we decided to do this job in the first place. But sometimes when you're so hard on yourself, you forget that you are still a human being and that you have those faults. So be understand that there's so many people out there who have had these setbacks in the past. There may be physicians who you work with, who you round with, who you didn't know like had to do a transitional year because they didn't match the first time, who failed their boards twice before they were able to pass and go forward to graduate, who may have had any type of these setbacks. And you don't know because all you see is that you're scrubbing in next to them for a surgery, or that they're pimping you on rounds. So people get through these things happen, and it sucks. And you will be sad and you will be angry that you didn't do the right things the first time, but that's okay. You're human. Look back, talk to, whether it's a mentor that you have, or a physician, or someone who you're close to who can help you debrief on what happened. If it's an advisor, who can help to kind of look at all of these things and figure out, okay, this is what happened here, this is what happened here, and then address them, and try it again. The MCAT will be there. Just study again, fix it, retake it, get a higher score. Same thing with the board exam. I have friends who did fail their board exams, then they retook it, and then they passed, and now they're attendings because they finished up their residencies, like, and they're doing their thing. I know people who, like me, who did not match the first time because of things that happened with their application, and had to do many different jump through different types of hoops that were unique, or had to do like prelim years, and or even just had to do research years, and now they're very happy with where they're at. But they didn't just ignore what happened and then reapply, because that's not the key. You just have to you know face it, be humble, be graceful, or did I say graceful? Yeah, give yourself grace, and then move forward.
Thank you. Thank you. I also think that a lot of the anxiety surrounding things not matching, for example, is just the uncertainty and the unknown factor about it. Like, what am I going to do if I end up not matching? So, can you share a bit about what that was like for you? And I imagine the process can be different from specialty to specialty, but what was that experience like for you? What were the steps that you took and things that you did? But also, what was your mindset
Mhm.
going into it?
So, one of the things that benefited me versus some other individuals who I knew went through the same process is that I had a resource in SNMA that was able to help me out. So, during my year that I didn't match, we had a um, special program called Road to Residency. And one of the last sessions that they did was on what to do if you don't match. And it was about an hour, 2 hours long. I think it still exists on the Facebook and on the YouTube, so you can scroll back and try to find it. And they break down this is how the timeline goes. If you don't match, this is how much time you have until the application process opens. This is how much time you have until you have to figure out what programs are available, who you need to call, what you need to do, if you need to rewrite your personal statement, if you need to reach out to this. So, this is the timeline that you need to go through, and you start making things work. Because they had that session, and I watched that session about a week or two beforehand, I didn't want to take things by chance, even though I thought that I was going to match. I did reach out to my past evaluators and ask for them to give me backup letters of recommendation for other specialties, for prelims, for transitional years. And I let them know I might not have to use this, but I just want to be prepared. So when I got that email that I didn't match, I first had to get myself emotionally together because I was not prepared for that. I took a couple of hours for that and then literally just started with my application. I already had like part of it done. So, um, using the resources that are out there was so helpful. Um, Understanding all of the people who are going to be there for you. There were friends who I reached out to, or who reached out to me because they saw I kind of went quiet on social media. And I told about that, who were like, okay, I'm going to look through. Do you have lists of places that you're looking into that you want to research? Let's make a spreadsheet. I'll look through this, I'll look through 20 of these, and I'll go through the website and put all of the information about these things on here so you know who to contact. This is what their scores are. Um, I had friends who were like reviewing my a personal statement, and who were going through all of these processes with me. And you think the match process is a long process. It usually starts in from when applications are available September and then ends in March. The soap process lasts 4 to 5 days. So imagine kind of going through that process in like 4 to 5 days. It was a whirlwind, to say the least. But um, I was blessed to have like a team of people who were behind me, who were looking out for me. Um, my school had people who were able to help me through the like psychological toll of it, plus who were able to kind of give me guidance on um, places that may have spots available, or people who you should reach out to, or I reached out to this place and they said that to send the application, things like that, and really helped. So making sure you have just relying on honestly, if I didn't have that group of people behind me. And then also there were other people who I know who didn't match, and we had our own little chat where we were encouraging each other. um, so it was a bit of a process. I ended up entering into a transitional year program at that time, and was really happy with that transitional year program. Um, Partway through the year, I had the opportunity from a program that I had actually applied to during the SOAP, who had a position that opened up that was an OBGYN program, but it was a preliminary program, so only 1 year, who offered me a position there. So I actually ended up transitioning from one program to another partway mid year, um, into an obstetrical and gynecology prelim program, um, while going through the application process. So, yeah, I had a lot going on during that time.
I'm
um,
sorry.
yeah, but you know, reapplied. gained so much experience from there, walked into the interview process that year so much stronger as someone who had practice, who knew how to be an intern because I had been an intern before, who understood being on the labor and delivery floor because I had been there before, who kind of understood what it means to have to fight through some sort of adversity because I'd been through it before, and it made me a much stronger applicant the second time around. So sometimes those setbacks can actually be of benefit for you, um, because programs want people who are going to be prepared to be strong, physicians and residents and interns, and who better to be a strong intern than someone who has already been a strong intern. So it was great. I mean, I ended up matching into my number one program. I'm uh, not too far away from where I live, so I get to go visit home when I want to. It worked out, but it really kind of took a village, during that year, from the time that I got that email that said that I didn't match to the time that I got the email that said that I did match. It really took a lot of support. So it's important to really have that support system in place.
Yeah. So, you mentioned your interviews that you did afterwards, and that's kind of my next question. So, all the way from when we interview for med school to, I imagine, interviewing for residencies and everything afterwards, we always like we're told to present ourselves in the most like impressive, competitive ways that we can. How do you talk about like failing an exam or having not matched or anything like that? How do you talk about those kind of things at an interview, while still hoping to be an impressive candidate?
I will say that in my experience, I've been obviously been on one side of being an interviewer, like the interviewee, but I've also had the experience of being on the other side as the interviewer. So I've seen both ways, and I've heard people answer questions where I'm like, ugh, I wouldn't have answered it that way. The best way that you can really show to really address it is to, number one, address it. Don't ignore that it happened. Um, be forefront with it, that this happened, this was a setback, but also show what you did to correct it, or show what you are doing to correct it, and give an example of how you know you were able to have a good outcome from that. If you didn't have a strong board score, which was my case, I didn't have a strong board score, and I didn't match the first time, so that was great. You have to just make sure you let them know, like, okay, yes, my board score wasn't very strong, um, but I understand that I have another set of boards that are coming. I've been able to look through all of the issues that I had with that and address them. You've picked up a new resource. You now have a very strict study schedule. You now have a tutor. You've figured out different ways on how to address that. And what you have been seeing is that your practice test scores now have been much more improved than they were when you first took that first exam where you weren't doing so strongly. Um, if you didn't match the first time, address, like, it was really terrible, but I knew what the reasons were. I corrected those reasons, and even though I wasn't able to match that first time, in the last year I've gained so much experience, if it's clinically, wise, if you're working. These are all of the things that I've been able to do, and it's just made me a much stronger applicant the second time around. If it's having a bad evaluations, you might be able to get around with it depending on what school you go to. Some evaluations are able to hide them a little bit more than others, but if it is something where there is a bad evaluation and someone addresses it, just be clear with what happened. Don't try to set anyone up. Don't try to downplay the evaluator and say, oh, they were just trying to set me up to fail. They had it out for me, because that's not a good look. But just, say what you experienced from your point of view, be diplomatic, and, make sure that you can balance that out with some strong evaluations that you've had. I had this poor evaluation in family medicine. I had a really difficult time because it was my first rotation, and I didn't really understand where my place fell as a medical student. But as I kept going through the rotation, I felt like I improved upon myself. And then my next rotation that I had in internal medicine was so strong that I ended up getting an honors. So you show that you can develop from those bad outcomes, and people will want to see you because, unfortunately, if you do well all the time, they're going to be looking for the flaw. If you have like the flaw up front and then also are showing how that flaw isn't that much of a flaw, it just made you a better person, they're going to like you more. You're more down to earth. You're more real. And then interviews itself, just be yourself. One thing I always remembered, even from med school, is that if you've gotten the interview, they already like who you are. They know what happened. They already know your application. They know you did bad on your boards. They know you did bad on your test. They know you didn't pass that Orgo exam or that Orgo class the first time. They already know. So, but they still chose to interview you. Why? Because there was something else in the application and something else in your packet that intrigued them, that makes them see you as someone who they want at your program. You just have to show them what that is, and and don't ignore what happened before, because they already know that it's there. They just want to hear your side of it. So, keep that in mind, and I think that you will have a strong outcome in your interviews.
Definitely, thank you. So, I'd like you to please share a bit more about your own comeback story. So, you ended up matching, you matched at your top program that you wanted to be at. I'd like you to just share about more about what that was like for you, for any person who's listening who maybe has not matched or has failed something, just so that they can know what they can look forward to get to the other side of that hurdle that they're struggling to overcome right now.
Yeah, so I mean, I spoke a little bit about it. It was really hard. I will say that I am someone who I mentioned I've been through other trials and tribulation in my life. It's not like and everyone has, right? Everyone has been through some type of challenge, that other people may not have been through. But I felt like at the time when it happened, when I didn't match, it felt like the worst thing that could have happened to me. And I think that that's the case with a lot of people. When you get your MCAT score and it's lower than you wanted it to be, or you go through the application process for medical school and you don't get any interviews back, or you know you apply, for a match, and you see all these people who are talking about where they matched at and you didn't match. It seems like the worst thing ever. But it is not. There is still another side that is sitting there, and that story and that journey is meant to take you somewhere. Um, I feel that if I would have matched during that first process, I may have matched into a program that I would not have loved as much as the program that I'm in now. And there was a reason why I didn't end up matching that first time. If you believe in God, for me, I believe it was God. It was what he was meant for me to do. If you're someone who doesn't believe in that, who you believe in like the power of the universe or destiny or fate, that was part of it. That was what happened to me. Some things are, you don't know why. I mean, I know why. Four scores. But but you think that it's something that you have much more control over, and sometimes it's not meant to be that way. Um and you just need to know that you have something else looking forward to you that's so much better. I cannot speak more highly about where I am. I really love the program. I was just walking home today. I live like downtown, so I walk back and forth from work, and I was just like walking and just thinking like, ah, it's freezing cold, but I really love living in the city, and I love being in walking distance, and I really enjoy what I do, even as an intern. I love it, and not everyone can say that. And I think that it's a blessing in itself that I have that ability to be able to say that, even though I didn't match this time last year, I was not feeling the same way. I was someone who was fresh in a new program after having transferred mid-year, a new program with a new specialty in a new place in a new city, um, while still going through interviews for residency. It was so challenging back then, but just think of all of the options that are available to you in the future if you just keep working and trying and just moving forward. Keep your eyes on that prize, because not only will you be a doctor, but you will be a doctor where you want to be in the place that you want to be. And it'll be that much more, it becomes that much sweeter, I think, when you've had those challenges that got you there. I don't know if I would have come straight into my program from where I was as a med student. I don't know if I would have been so appreciative and so in love with where I'm at as if I didn't go through all of the challenges that it took for me to get there. And sometimes that's what it is. I hope that that's a good that answers that question. But yeah,
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson, for taking the time. And I'm glad that you're enjoying your program that you're in. But yes, those are all the questions that I had for you. Thank you so much for making time to chat with us today.
thank you so much, and good luck to anyone who is out there. Again, as I said, it is hard. These things happen, and sometimes you feel like you're the only person out there that's going through this. But just know that you probably aren't. There's a sea of people and a team of people who have gone through some version of what you're going through and who is rooting for you to continue on. Um, don't let whatever happened set you back or make you decide that, this isn't what you wanted to do. If this is what you want to do, if this is what you love doing, it will happen. And if, you want to do it, if God wants you to do it, it's going to happen. All you got to do is just keep at it, and you will accomplish what you are setting out to do.
It looks like we have one question. So Olivia says, I'm enjoying the discussion so much already. I wanted to ask how you prevent yourself from doubting yourself when you encounter setbacks. It's easy for imposter syndrome to creep in.
Yes. I Imposter syndrome is real. Like literally so real. Especially in med school. I had the most imposter syndrome. I went to an HBCU for undergrad, and then even though I did some work after college, the last job that I had was at an HBCU. So just the diversity in the environment that I was in was so different when I went to my medical school that I felt like somehow I slid in, that like somehow my application ended up in the wrong pile, and they were just like, I guess we sent her the acceptance letter, so we have to let her stay. Like that's what I thought in my head. Um, but once you recognize that imposter syndrome is a thing and why it's there, because you are doing something that not many people have done, because there's only like 2% of Black female physicians, and but less than 5% of Black physicians all around, you understand why it is that you feel like you're an imposter, because what you have seen in what it is that you are trying to do has not looked like you, so you feel like you're not supposed to be there. But remember that you are. You took the same tests, you applied the same way, you did the same interview, and they liked you just as much as they liked that other person that's sitting across the classroom from you. They may have liked you in a different way. You may have brought something different to the table, but you both were accepted here. And that's it. You belong, period. And if anyone has a problem with that, that's their problem, not yours. If someone has a problem with you being there, that is on them. Don't let that feeling of being an imposter keep you from being strong at what you do. or asking that question in class, or sounding dumb when you ask that question in class. Sometimes you're just going to sound silly, and whatever, who cares? You need to learn, right? You need to be a doctor, and you deserve to be in this space. So um you know it's hard to get around it, but you have to. Sometimes you may need to have, those discussions with some friends or mentors who share the same experience as you, so that they can help you talk it out. For some people, therapy helps, to be able to talk out like why it is that you have this imposter syndrome, and what it means to, how it is that you operate throughout the world, and how it is that you might be setting yourself up to expect that you're going to fail before you even do something, because you have that imposter syndrome. It's all real very much in your head. um it's in my head. I have to remind myself of that all the time. Right? So um you know just it really takes, understanding yourself, and understanding why it is that your brain is operating the way that it is to make you feel that way, and then talking yourself down from that ledge, and understanding that you truly deserve to be where you are. You didn't slide in through the cracks. Someone there was they Your application came up in the table on the table that was full of people, and they all discussed your application, and they said, "We want this person here." And that's why you were there. Don't forget that.
Absolutely, you're supposed to be there. I
Mhm.
like that. So, as a follow up to that question, and I don't know if you experienced this or not, but how would you deal with other people doubting your ability because of, say, someone having to take the step more than once or not match the first time or anything like that? How do you deal with it when it's from other people that you work with?
I Okay, so my response to it is that I don't pay it any mind, because what is going on with me is based off of me, and if I let what everyone else is thinking about me get into my head, I know it will set myself up to fail. I am an overthinker, and if I dwell too much on what other people are thinking about me, it'll make me doubt myself. That's just me. So I have to remind myself to shut those things out. Um, but there are people who are going to doubt your abilities, people who will doubt because they know about your application, because they know that you had to, um, match again, or they know that you might have failed. There are people who don't even know anything about you. They just see you and they're like, "I'm going to doubt your abilities because you don't look like what I'm used to you looking like." And that is a them problem. That's not a you problem. Um, I tend to lean on the side of just being upfront and knowing that if I'm not embarrassed about what I had to do to get here, then no one else should make me feel ashamed about what I had to do to get there. When I usually introduce myself to people, if I'm in a setting where I'm telling them about my like where I went to medical school, I include I did a transitional year and a prelim year, and then I ended up here. If I'm proud about it, then why would anyone else shame me about it? They can't. So but you will deal with people who will doubt your abilities, sometimes to your face, and make you and try to make you feel crappy. When I before I even had my orientation, there was a guy who told me that, I more than likely got into school basically because of affirmative action. Like, said that to my face. And I replied and saying, "No, because you just told me what your MCAT score was, and I got 15 points higher than you did, and I have a ton of research experience. So, no, sorry. Try again." Be confident in who you are. And if you don't have that, if they did have better scores than you, then, tell them to go jump off somewhere. The reason why they're doing it is because they want to make themselves feel better. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. So, um, just try to shut those people out. They aren't those people aren't going to take those exams for you. They're not going to be the ones who are going to sit in the interview with you. They are not the ones who are going to be walking across the stage and getting that degree. It's going to be you. So don't worry about them. Let them do whatever they need to do to help them get through the day, and do what you need to do to get through your day. Um, and do what you need to do so that you can get that degree or pass it, get through that residency program, and be a future attending, taking care of SNMA things.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson. Um, okay, if there are no other questions, all right, we can go ahead and end here. Thank you so much for making time for SNMA, and I hope that your residency continues to go well.
Thank you. I will always try to make time for SNMA.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Have a good night, everyone.